Leo's foster sister had just graduated abroad and returned home. The always aloof Leo seemed like a completely different person. He would lift her onto his shoulders at concerts. He would accompany her to anime conventions just because she loved cosplay. Even though he was allergic to dog hair, he would personally wash her dog, just because he didn't want her injured hands to touch water. They seemed to treat me as if I were already dead. But I am the sole head of the Yu family in Harbor City, with influence in both the underworld and the upper echelons of society. There's no way I'd settle for a rotten man, nor would I let any shameless pair of lovers go unpunished. Chapter 1. Our shared email account was hacked. The hacker sent us indecent photos and videos of my husband with his foster sister, demanding $3 million in ransom. My first thought was to call the police, but Leo instead spent a fortune to hire someone to trace the hacker back. He found him, broke his leg, and dumped him in Cambodia. My finger had already pressed 91, but the final one never came down. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. For the sake of that so-called sister, Leo had committed such a reckless crime, right on the eve of our company's public listing. A true case of love madness. That very night, Leo brought Fiona home. He pushed her suitcase and held her hand tightly, as if afraid that the woman he cherished most would flutter away like a butterfly. His gaze was filled with a tenderness I had never once seen. Before we married, Fiona had been sent abroad to study. As a teenager, she had even stripped herself bare and crawled into her foster brother's bed to seduce him, only to be thrown out of the room. The Leo family feared she would ruin our arranged marriage and the benefits binding our two families, so they decisively shipped her away. Leo had never hidden any of this, and like a fool, I had always believed he truly had no improper feelings toward her. Leo, you're taking me home with you. Won't your wife be upset? At the villa's gate, Fiona suddenly stopped, nervously rubbing her fingertips together. Head lowered, Leo gently held her reddened hand. Of course not. You're my sister. My family. Since she married me, she has to accept all my family too. Then he pulled her forward, only to meet my cold gaze under the porch light. A woman who once stripped herself naked to crawl into her foster brother's bed, and now, after a public scandal, still dares to hold hands openly. Don't you two know the meaning of shame? My voice was mocking. My eyes filled with disdain as I leaned against the doorframe, blocking their way. Fiona cowered behind Leo, not daring to look at me. Things have been bad. Our parents are furious and wouldn't let me come home. My brother was just kind enough to take me in. Otherwise, I'd have to sleep under a bridge. I sneered, raising my brow slightly. In all of Harbor City, with countless hotels, are you really so broke you can't even pay for one night? You just had to run into a married man's house and play the pitiful little victim? At my words, Leo frowned and stepped forward, shielding Fiona entirely, his eyes openly protective. Elise, must you be so harsh? Fiona's still just a child. A child? A 23-year-old child? I stared coldly at him, standing firmly on her side, and suddenly found it all absurd. My expression darkened completely as I said each word clearly. Leo, don't forget, behind me isn't just my family, but the entire Yu clan of Harbor City. Chapter 2. A blatant threat. Without any disguise, Leo's face turned visibly dark and grim. Fiona, who had been hiding in the back, rushed forward upon seeing this and quickly grabbed my hand. Sister-in-law, you misunderstood me. I have no intention of ruining anything between you two. If you're unhappy, I'll leave right away. I won't stay here to annoy you. I watched her pathetic performance coldly and let out a mocking laugh. In that case, I won't bother seeing you off. At that moment, Leo sighed helplessly and stepped forward, pinching my cheek as though mocking a child throwing a tantrum. Elise, that hacker in Cambodia was caught in a hideout. When they threw him out, his hands and legs were broken, and his body was covered in festering wounds. His photos are all over the internet. With that as a warning, no one dares to gossip anymore. You can rest assured. Rest assured. Such a dismissive phrase, enough to grind my dignity as his wife into the mud. In his eyes, my refusal to let Fiona in today was nothing but unreasonable and embarrassing. I lifted my gaze and glanced at Fiona's smug, triumphant face. Just as I was about to speak, Leo, pulling her inside, pushed me aside. My back slammed hard against the stone pillar by the doorway, pain shooting up from my injured spine. Because of racing, I already had severe back problems. But to Leo, this was nothing but me looking for trouble. Fiona is my sister. She'll be staying here for a while. Just because I married you doesn't mean I have to cut ties with my family. Don't go too far, Elise. It was just a concert. A few comic conventions. Is your heart really that small? I froze, cold sweat soaking my clothes. But I didn't feel much of the physical pain, because the pain in my heart crushed everything else. Even the torment of my years-long back injury. As she passed by me, Fiona let out a faint laugh. Her whisper carried that unbearable, sweet and cloying scent, brushing against my ear. Sister-in-law, you're just not good enough. Later, in the home theater, Fiona wore only a thin nightdress, curling up against Leo as they watched a movie. Her coquettish laughter rang out again and again. I sat on the sofa, gripping the financial report tightly in my hands. When they finally came out, still clinging to each other and heatedly discussing the plot, Fiona pressed her body firmly against Leo's arm, rubbing as they walked. I clearly saw the redness in his eyes. For years of marriage, I knew too well that was his sign of being moved. Leo turned away awkwardly, muttered something about taking a shower, and rushed upstairs. The large living room was left with only me and Fiona, staring straight at each other. She dropped her timid act from the afternoon, her gaze bold and unrestrained. With one hand, she pulled down the strap of her nightdress. The thin strap slid down her pale, delicate arm like jade, settling into the crook of her elbow, her chest half exposed, bare beneath. Sister-in-law, you know it too. Even if his family despises me, it was Leo who raised me. If he didn't love me, why would he allow me into his bedroom? Chapter 3, Love? That word jolted every nerve in me awake, dragging me back into the sharp, decisive woman I had always been. I closed the financial report with a small laugh. Under Fiona's stunned gaze, I slowly rose to my feet, walked over, and deliberately poked the soft flesh she was flaunting with my fingertip. My warm breath brushed against her ear. If someone is useful to me, I don't care if it's a woman. Why would I care who a marriage partner actually loves? Little girl, here's the same truth. He can put on the most meaningless show of love with you, but he will never marry you. Do you know why? Fiona's face changed color 3 times in an instant before settling into a sickly white. She stubbornly stood her ground, craning her neck childishly as if trying to prove her defiance. Why? I laughed, mocking and cold. Each word was like a bullet, tearing through her fragile pride. Because you're useless. You're just the adopted daughter. The weight I put on those 2 words made her knees buckle, her face twisting as if it were about to ooze filth. I yawned loudly, ready to head upstairs. Behind me, Fiona's voice rang out. Elise, I'll take my brother back. You'll see, he can only ever belong to me. I didn't stop for even a second, my spine straight. I climbed the stairs. Dignity and reason stopped me from acting like some desperate housewife catching her husband with a mistress. If I raised my hand, it would be to kill. When I finally reached the bedroom, the sound of running water still filled the bathroom. Mixed with it were low, intimate moans, and faintly, unmistakably, that name, Fiona. 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 There was no need to guess what Leo was doing. My heart was nothing but barren ground. This marriage might not have started from love, but people are creatures of emotion. I had never thought of any man besides Leo. My upbringing taught me loyalty before I was ever married. And now, I suddenly wanted to see, how far was this man willing to go for his dirty, disgraceful feelings? The next morning, the space beside me was ice cold. So, he hadn't slept here at all. Where he had gone was obvious. I gave a bitter laugh. Leo's company was about to launch its most important project of the year. Everyone was working around the clock. He needed rest, needed focus. But now, for the second time in a short span, he had ruined his routine because of Fiona. When I came downstairs, Fiona was already eating breakfast. The sight of her using the master's cup made my brow crease. That cup is mine. Didn't the servants tell you? Or did the daughter your family raised come with so little upbringing that you don't even know how to behave in someone else's home? Fiona froze, then looked at me with teary eyes, pitiful and pleading, as if begging for sympathy behind me. Leo stepped forward, his hand pressing on my shoulder, his fingers tightening with reproachful control. Is this really necessary, Elise? It's just a cup. She's used to being carefree at home. Do you really need to make a scene over something so trivial? I froze, staring at him in disbelief. In his eyes, there was irritation and impatience, an expression he rarely, if ever, showed me. For years of marriage, we were a couple others envied, respectable and composed, even without passion. We had harmony. My heart ached again. Leo, what she does in your family's house is none of my concern. But here, this is my home, our marital home. Or do you want me to ask father if this is how she should behave? His expression turned dark, his voice cruel and cutting. Are you threatening me? Elise, remember your place. Are you my wife or my mother? I let my sister stay in my home for a few days, and you think you get to set the rules? With that, he grabbed the cup and smashed it against the floor. White porcelain shattered, shards skittering across the floor, slicing into my bare leg. Leo pulled Fiona up and headed for the door. Come, I'll take you out for breakfast. You don't have to put up with this woman's attitude. Fiona let her hand trail down his arm, slipping into his palm. Just before leaving, she glanced back at me, her eyes full of smug ridicule. Chapter 4. Leo didn't come home for a week. He paraded Fiona to every banquet and gala. Gossip filled the air, and he did nothing to stop it. Everyone was speculating, was something wrong with our marriage? Standing in front of the cameras, Leo casually wrapped his arm around Fiona's shoulder. My marriage with my wife is tied by interest, and that is the strongest bond of all. But if anyone tries to break it, I will show no mercy. I laughed bitterly at the television screen. Those words weren't just a warning to the tabloids, they were a warning to me. Once the chains of interest break, no one wins. I hadn't thought Leo would actually consider using divorce as a weapon against me, for Fiona. In the dim lights of a bar, shadows flickered around me. I sat at the counter, drinking vodka mixed by the bartender. Duncan, beside me, pointed toward a lively private booth. I just saw your husband walk in there, with a woman. I tilted my head, smiling faintly. Tell me, Duncan, if I divorced him now, would the vultures in the family tear me apart in one bite? Duncan's face darkened, his tone serious. You're the only head of the family. Everyone under us listens to you. If you want, there's always a way to fight back. I nodded, just about to reply when Fiona walked out of the booth alone and came straight toward me. Sister-in-law, all alone? How pitiful. Oh, that's right, I almost forgot. My brother hasn't been coming home lately. Has he? You must be so lonely in that big empty bed. Her voice dripped with ridicule, her smirk shameless. I wasn't in the mood for her nonsense today. I got up to leave, but Fiona suddenly grabbed my wrist. She leaned close, whispering into my ear. Tell me, if both of us were in danger, who do you think my brother would save first? Before I could react, a group of thugs swaggered toward us, shouting obscenities. Two beauties, looking fine. Come drink with us. Duncan had stepped away for a call. I'd sent the bodyguards home early. No one was there to stop them. I struggled desperately. Fiona screamed Leo's name. The bar erupted into chaos. Leo rushed over, but he didn't even glance at me. He kicked the man holding Fiona and frantically pulled her into his arms. Fiona, are you hurt? Did they touch you? Meanwhile, rough hands were already tearing at my clothes. I screamed. Only then did Leo finally look at me. His first words? So it was you. I knew you'd never let Fiona off. Don't think I don't see through this act. You planned this. Elise. He lifted Fiona, carrying her out of the bar without a single look back. I was left in torn clothes, shards of broken bottles cutting into my skin. Finally, Duncan returned with a few brutal moves. He knocked the men down and pulled me into his arms. My tears spilled freely, hatred flooding my chest. Through clenched teeth, I whispered, I want a divorce, and this humiliation, they will repay 100-fold. Chapter 5. I carried my battered body back to the old family estate. The old master immediately ordered someone to drag Leo back, but I stopped him. The lawyer laid out the divorce agreement along with a transfer document for the overseas market, placing both in front of the old master. Dad, you and Mom have treated me well all these years, but my relationship with Leo can only end here. Our family cannot afford such a son-in-law who shames us so publicly. My words were blunt, But the old master did not rebuke me. He only let out a long sigh. It is we who have wronged you. Leo has no blessings. This matter is settled. Our family will never let you suffer a loss. When I left the estate, I happened to run into Leo returning with Fiona. He lowered his gaze to me, his lips curling into a mocking smile. Another little complaint you ran to make? In just a few days, the gentle look he once gave me had turned into disdain and irritation, as if I had committed some unforgivable crime. Before I could speak, Fiona sneered. What else could it be? The same old accusations that I seduced my own brother. That she's jealous because he's closer to me. But really, isn't it just that our dear sister-in-law's heart is so dirty that she sees filth everywhere? Leo's eyes showed only contempt. Elise, this is the modern age. Do you still believe that after marriage, I can't even care for my own sister? Don't be so narrow-minded. The two of them, united in front of me, threw their sharp words like knives. I pulled at the corner of my lips, confused. If you two are so pure and righteous, then why target that hacker? When your little sister straddled your shoulders in her short skirt, why did you blush? Isn't it disgusting? You. Leo's face darkened, his voice booming with anger as he pointed at me. But I no longer looked at him. I simply got into the car and left. Inside the car, Duncan was already waiting. He handed me an overseas market acquisition file, his smile tinged with meaning. Since you've decided to return and take over the family business, I'll naturally have people manage the group affairs for you. Elise, I'll always be here. I lifted my eyes to him. For the first time, I saw something different in my childhood friend's gaze, feelings I had never noticed before. Suddenly, I realized that all these years he had merely restrained himself with impeccable control. Compared to that, Leo's indulgence only made his character seem all the more base. When I got home, my parents were already waiting. They had ordered everything from my marital home with Leo moved out, every item I had used. Every trace of me, even the photos. My half cut away, leaving nothing behind. Leo, having stayed outside with Fiona for so long, hadn't even noticed. Since you've decided to divorce, we threw everything away. Better not to keep bad luck. My mother held me close, pinching my cheek tenderly as she did when I was a child. The warmth of her embrace unraveled me completely, and tears spilled down uncontrollably. Since becoming an adult, burdened with responsibility, I had rarely allowed myself to cry. Father, furious, slammed his palm on the table. That ungrateful brat. His company only thrived because you covered for him. From now on, he won't have such good fortune. I wiped away my tears, knelt before my father, and looked up at his face now carved with wrinkles. My heart ached. Dad, you've worked so hard all these years. I know I married for alliance at first, but I still lived comfortably, not truly sharing your burdens. From now on, the family's honor will rest on me. For years I had only overseen the group's dealings with Leo's company. The rest of the family's development had been borne by father alone. Now, I was finally awake. Father nodded firmly, then turned to take out a golden box from the cabinet behind him. Inside was the family seal of authority. He placed it in my palm. Good child, go forth without hesitation. Chapter 6. I unilaterally held a press conference to announce the divorce. The divorce agreement, stamped with the patriarch's seal from Leo's family, was submitted to the court. At the same time, all of Leo's family's companies were besieged by the entire industry. Their major project, which was just about to launch, was intercepted by other corporations. Leo went mad, searching for me everywhere, but he hit closed doors at every turn. He couldn't get through my phone either. Pacing like an ant on a hot pan, desperate, he could only speak through the media, declaring that he had no intention of divorcing me. By then, I was already overseas, working in the international division, focused on acquiring several large publicly listed companies. I controlled everything remotely. When Duncan called, I had just signed the final contract, officially expanding our family's corporate territory by nearly double. Leo's lost it. He even came looking for me. He's sitting right in our company's lobby, refusing to leave. I let out a cold laugh, raising my brows slightly. Don't bother with him. Next, as planned, we'll strike at those large investment firms under his personal name. That way, his backup funding chain will be completely severed. You really don't have a shred of mercy. Do you? I arched a brow at that, snapping the folder shut. My voice frosty. Mercy is useless. It doesn't suit me. Duncan's smile turned wild and reckless. His mood so good it could be felt even over the phone. Then we'll do as you say. I'll be your spearhead. Taking down Leo is our mission. And we won't stop until he falls. Just then, my domestic phone buzzed. Message after message popped up from Fiona, each one full of indecent photos. She was dressed in revealing lingerie, kneeling on the balcony of what used to be our marital home. Behind her, Leo's eyes were bloodshot, his clothes disheveled. The two of them, captured in every intimate position imaginable, with not the slightest regard for me. Each detail was shot clearly, every trace of intimacy broadcast in high definition. Elise, did you see? Has your brother-in-law ever lost control like this with you? He never loved you. You were nothing but a prop in his arranged marriage, a shield against his feelings for me. My advice? Be smart and back off. Don't play this ridiculous game of pretending to withdraw just to lure him back. It's pathetic. When Duncan noticed my long silence, he asked curiously on the other end of the line, "What happened?" I sent all the photos back to him and said coldly, "Who are they trying to humiliate? Clearly, Leo has no regard for my dignity. Since that's the case, I won't hold back anymore. Find some top online influencers and famous paparazzi. I want this pair of dogs completely ruined. Social death." Duncan was silent for a moment, his breathing growing heavier. The fury in his voice nearly burst through the receiver. Dark and destructive. Those bastards, I'll make sure they regret it. After a while, his tone softened. He coaxed me gently, almost cautiously. "Elise, don't be angry. Every wound they've given you, I'll help you take back one by one, and when the dust finally settles, I hope you'll give me a chance to be the man who stands beside you forever." My heartbeat skipped in that instant, and under the fiery glow of the sunset outside, it began to burn hotter. Chapter 7. After finishing business overseas, I finally returned home. I sent a letter of intent to the patriarch, helping him select a new candidate to transfer the company's authority to. Leo's illegitimate younger brother, born of a nightclub dancer and raised outside the family, had never been acknowledged for years. Compared to Leo, the old man valued my family's corporation more. Without hesitation, he signed the papers. I lowered my eyes at those 3 flamboyant characters of his signature, knowing this meant Leo's reign as president had officially come to an end. When I walked out of the old residence, Leo happened to come in. I almost didn't recognize him, disheveled, in wrinkled shirts, even missing the top button. Dark circles hung heavy under his eyes, showing he hadn't rested well for days. The moment he saw me, he rushed up eagerly, grasping my hands, trembling slightly. "Elise, where have you been? I nearly turned the whole city upside down, and still couldn't find you." I lazily arched a brow, gazing at him with mockery. My eyes carried only detachment and coldness, none of the tenderness they once held. The truth was, though I had always refused to admit it, insisting on the aloof and unyielding persona of the grand lady, I couldn't deny that during those 4 years, those 1,000+ days and nights, I had once cared. I had once wanted to love this man properly, and build a family together. "Leo, you don't even have business projects to work on anymore. Why aren't you resting? Is your dear sister too demanding, draining you with overindulgence?" The words were deliberately cruel, merciless. Leo's eyes reddened instantly. "Elise, must you talk to me this way? We're still husband and wife. Give me a chance. Let's talk, please." "Of course. Why not?" I raised a brow lightly, my voice calm. "After all, the divorce isn't finalized yet, but my new boyfriend is a little jealous, and he doesn't like waiting." Leo's face turned completely black. In a tea house downtown, the fragrance of red sleeves and steaming tea lingered in the air. On the table before Leo lay our divorce papers, the corners curled as if they'd been violently handled. Why divorce? Just for that so-called new boyfriend? I couldn't help it, I burst out laughing. "Think whatever you want, Leo, but your way of turning the blame on others, you've truly mastered that art." He rubbed his temples in frustration. "Fiona is just my sister. I could never see her as anything else. Why must you cling to such baseless accusations?" I waved my hand impatiently, unwilling to hear any more excuses. Save those empty words for your father. I don't have time for this. Just sign, quickly. It'll be better for us both. Leo suddenly stood, came to my side, and knelt on one knee, holding my hand tightly. Fine. I was wrong. Isn't that enough? I've already checked the bar surveillance footage. I know now you were innocent. That those thugs were just an accident. I shouldn't have blamed you for hurting Fiona. I was drunk that day, confused. I yanked my hand away, cold seeping into my chest. Too late. Leo, as husband and wife, we should have been united. Even if you loved someone else, I wouldn't have cared. I might not have loved you, but I would never have broken our alliance. But you betrayed me. You hurt me. That's the one thing I can't forgive. Both you and Fiona will pay the price. Revenge is my nature. Are you only realizing this now? I stood, preparing to find another way to force his hand into divorce. But unexpectedly, Leo hugged me from behind, trembling as he asked, "You did like me once, didn't you?" At this point, what a joke. I couldn't understand how, after all this, Leo was still trapped in this endless debate about love and not love, unable to break free. Divorce. Leo, unless you want Fiona's future days to become even worse. I shoved him off and strode away. Elise, I do love you. After so many years together, don't tell me there's no feeling at all, please. Just believe me this once. I stopped, turned, and showed him my phone, the photos Fiona had sent me. This is how you love me, Leo. You're ridiculous. Chapter 8. The headline CEO caught in incest scandal exploded across the internet. Major platforms splashed it on their front pages, and the already tottering company took another devastating hit. Now on the verge of bankruptcy, the old master seized the moment to hold a press conference. He announced the family business would shift to overseas markets, declared Leo removed from his CEO position, and installed his younger son as the new head of the family corporation. He also cut all ties with Fiona, announcing that she was no longer the family's foster daughter. Leo was besieged from all sides, drowning in personal debts amounting to billions. His enemies pressed their advantage, leaving him no room to breathe. When he came to see me again, he was even more wretched than before. Several strange sores marred his body. They didn't look like bruises from a beating but more like the lesions of some disease. Leo stood at a distance, hesitating to approach. I have nothing now, truly nothing. I know I was wrong. Can't you forgive me this once? Give me a chance to change? Don't worry. I'll send Fiona abroad immediately, and I'll never let her return. I'll stay by your side and do whatever you ask. Just don't abandon me so easily, please? His words dripped with desperation, his tone groveling. I tilted my head and slowly sized him up. After a pause, I smiled faintly. Leo, let's forget everything else. Are you sure you haven't caught some disease? I've got something here you might want to see. Without waiting for his answer, I tossed a brown envelope at his feet. Inside were files and photos from Fiona's years abroad. She had often mingled with groups of black men, joined certain special parties, several times being crowned party queen. She had built a reputation for wrecking marriages, frequently becoming mistresses to married men, and was eventually discarded again and again. And yet, she'd returned home pretending to be a pure, innocent little girl, falling into Leo's arms. At that moment, I felt deeply grateful that ever since Fiona's return, Leo and she had never shared a bed. Otherwise, I would have bashed my head to death. Leo's hands shook violently as he picked up the photos, his face turning ghastly. Rage made his entire body tremble. I then threw another document at him, an HIV test report. Positive. The stark result leapt off the page. Leo, stop wasting time begging me for forgiveness. You'd better get yourself to a hospital. This disease can kill you if it worsens. Leo locked Fiona up in a fit of fury. Neither of them had been seen for quite some time. I couldn't be bothered. Instead, I ordered Duncan to strike harder, crushing every company still under Leo's personal name, cutting off his final lifeline. Duncan handed me a glass of red wine. Leo's finished. Whether he lives or dies is up to you. I smiled, taking a sip. He stood high above others for so many years. Letting him crawl on in misery is harder than death. Duncan chuckled, lightly pinching my cheek. And what about me? How long do I have to keep waiting in the shadows? With no name, no title? I looked up into his tender gaze and, for the first time, understood what it felt like to be loved as someone's one and only. In our world, love wasn't supposed to matter, but in the quiet of night, who could say they didn't yearn for it? I laughed softly, wrapped my arms around his neck, and whispered, "The moment Leo signs the divorce papers, I'll make you official." But unexpectedly, even in such disgrace, Leo still refused divorce. He ignored the court's calls, refused to sign the papers, and even slammed the door on the old master himself. Left with no choice, I went to his villa. To my surprise, the front door stood ajar. As I stepped inside, a strange stench hit me, a chemical, corrosive odor that made me frown. Covering my nose, I followed the smell upstairs. From the guest room came the sounds of chaos. "You bitch! If not for you, Elise would never want a divorce. My marriage wouldn't be ruined, and I wouldn't have caught this filthy disease." Leo's voice was hoarse and venomous, like a demon crawling out of hell. Fiona's cries pierced the silence. "Please, brother, don't do this. I truly love you. Those things, I didn't want them. I was forced. It was father who abandoned me abroad. No one to protect me. That's why I was bullied. I barely survived to see you again. I never wanted to get sick like this." Her words ended in a blood-curdling scream. Peering through the crack in the door, I saw Fiona bound to a human-shaped rack. Leo stood over her with a spiked club, her body already beaten raw. Sores and festering wounds covered Leo's exposed skin. His infection had eaten deep into his body. It wouldn't be long before he had no hope left. I pushed the door open gently, leaning against the frame. Leo spun around, startled. When his eyes met mine, tears welled instantly. The club slipped from his hand with a dull thud. Then he dropped to his knees before me. "Wife, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Look, I've avenged you. This slut Fiona won't end well. Please, don't be angry anymore, okay?" Chapter 9. I looked down at him from above, my gaze cold and detached. "This is your matter, Leo. It has nothing to do with me. Fiona never had a place in my heart. Just a man, once he's tainted, he's discarded. And the woman he cheated with? It makes no difference who she is. I don't care in the slightest. You'd better just sign the divorce papers. Having a husband with syphilis is utterly disgraceful." One sentence deflated him like a punctured balloon. His body crumpled, and he broke down in loud, bitter sobs. Regret too late to matter. Fiona, barely clinging to life, forced her head up, blood covering her face as she looked at me. "Don't be so smug, Elise. You're only better than me because of your background. If you were me, you'd have ended up the same way." I laughed softly, my voice indifferent. "I am not you. But even if I were, my life would still be 1,000 times better than yours. Dignity and self-respect, that is what makes a person valuable. If you want something, fight for it yourself. If you can't get it, learn to let go. But staking all your worth on men, tossing one aside for another like you do, tell me, how are you any different from a prostitute?" As soon as the words fell, the wail of police sirens echoed outside. The moment I saw the scene in this house, I had already called the police. Now, at last, they arrived. When the officers subdued Leo, he fought wildly, his eyes locked desperately on me. "Elise, I love you. Believe me this once, I truly love you. Wait for me, all right? I'll get treatment. We can start over." But his pleas were cut off by Duncan. He strode quickly to my side and pulled me into his arms. "You nearly scared me to death. From now on, you're never allowed to go anywhere alone. Always bring bodyguards. Do you hear me?" Then he glanced at Leo and sneered. "Sorry, Elise is mine now." Leo's illness consumed him, and he died in prison. Fiona didn't last long either. She died in a hospital bed. Neither of them had anyone left to claim their bodies. The government paid for their cremation. I poured myself entirely into family affairs and rose to lead the most powerful clan in Hong Kong. All the old dealings turned legitimate, and the assets multiplied tenfold. On the day I married Duncan, I became the first female president of the United Chamber of Commerce. Socialites and nobles from across Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan gathered to offer their congratulations. I raised my glass slowly, gazing at the glittering crowd. To the future! And my future would be nothing less than radiant, boundless, brilliant. and unstoppable.